Welcome back to Canadian Insights, and buckle up because we're about to dive into a story that involves oil pipelines, geopolitical chess moves, and a timeline debate that's moving slower than a Canadian apologizing for bumping into a chair. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith just sent a letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney that's basically the political equivalent of texting someone "we need to talk" in all caps. She wants major project approvals fast-tracked to 6 months. Not 2 years. Not 18 months. 6 months. And honestly, the reasons why might actually surprise you, because this isn't just about Alberta wanting things yesterday, it's about Venezuela, Trump, and a global oil game that just got way more complicated. So what's the tea here? Well, Smith is essentially saying that while Ottawa is taking its sweet time reviewing major projects, the United States is out here moving at warp speed, and Canada is about to get left in the dust eating everyone else's economic tailpipe. The current system, established by Carney's Major Projects Office last year, aims to complete regulatory reviews within 2 years. 2 years. In political time, that's basically a blink. In economic time? That's an eternity. And Smith is not having it. Here's where it gets spicy. Smith's urgency isn't coming out of nowhere. Donald Trump just did something that sent shockwaves through the energy world. He met with 17, count them, 17 major oil company executives and basically announced that the United States is going all in on Venezuelan oil production. We're talking at least $100 billion in investments. Trump promised government protection for these investments and said companies would be dealing directly with his administration. It's like he's running a protection racket, except it's legal and involves crude oil instead of cement shoes. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what does Venezuela have to do with Canada? Great question. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves in the world. The largest. And with the recent capture of former President Nicolas Maduro, the U.S. is positioning itself to unlock that massive supply. Venezuela produces heavy oil, the same type that Alberta specializes in. And here's the kicker, both are competing for the same limited refining capacity in the United States. It's like two people showing up to a party with the same dish, except one of them got there first and put their casserole in the prime spot on the table. Smith's letter to Carney lays it out pretty clearly. She says renewed Venezuelan crude production, backed by American investment, will directly compete with Canadian production. Translation? If Canada doesn't move fast, Alberta's oil is going to be the bridesmaid while Venezuela waltzes off with the economic bouquet. And when your provincial budget depends on oil prices like a teenager depends on Wi-Fi, that's not just concerning, it's existential. But wait, there's more. Smith isn't just asking politely. She's putting specific timelines on the table. Her letter mentions that an application for a new pipeline will be submitted by June, and she wants it approved no later than fall. That's not a request, that's a deadline with a pretty bow on it. She's basically telling Ottawa, look, we're doing our part, now you need to do yours, and by the way, the clock is ticking louder than a bomb in an action movie. And if you thought Smith's timeline was ambitious, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre decided to raise the stakes. He's calling for approval within 60 days of receiving the application. 60 days. That's 2 months. That's barely enough time to binge-watch a mediocre Netflix series, let alone conduct environmental assessments, consult with Indigenous communities, and navigate the bureaucratic maze that is federal project approval. But Poilievre is making a point. He's saying the system is too slow, and in a competitive global market, slow equals losing. Now here's the interesting part. There's no specific route for this pipeline yet. There's no private sector proponent lined up. It's like Smith is ordering a custom pizza before the restaurant has even opened, but she's got a point. In the geopolitical context we're living in, waiting around for every duck to be in a row means you might miss dinner entirely. The US is accelerating its own oil and gas projects at breakneck speed, and Smith argues that any delay risks Canada losing market share, losing investment, and basically getting benched while everyone else plays the game. Let's talk about what Smith is actually proposing here because it's not just about one pipeline. She's talking about proven demand for Alberta's heavy oil in Asia. She's talking about expanding the existing Trans Mountain pipeline that connects Alberta to British Columbia's tidewater. She's painting a picture of Canada as a stable democracy with some of the most modern, efficient, and lowest emissions intensity oil produced globally. And honestly, she's not wrong. Canada does have a competitive advantage in terms of stability and environmental standards compared to many oil-producing nations. But here's where the rubber meets the road. Smith's letter emphasizes that Canada is uniquely positioned to significantly expand its role in global energy markets, but only if the federal government acts with urgency. It's the political equivalent of saying, We have all the ingredients for a great meal, but if we don't start cooking now, everyone's going to order takeout from somewhere else. And in this analogy, somewhere else is Venezuela, and Trump is the delivery guy promising your customers faster service. So what did Carney say about all this? Well, he posted on social media that he and Smith talked about getting big things built for Albertans and Canadians. Which is nice. It's very diplomatic. It's also completely vague and doesn't actually address Smith's call for quicker approvals. It's like when someone texts you we should totally hang out sometime, and you both know it's never going to happen. When reporters pushed Carney's office for answers, they got forwarded to Energy Minister Tim Hodgson's spokesperson, Charlotte Power, who said the government is working with Alberta to make sure the approval process is clear and efficient. But when it comes to specific timelines, they are still in early stages. Early stages. Smith wants approval by fall. Ottawa is in early stages. You can practically hear the disconnect from space. It's like one person is sprinting toward the finish line while the other is still tying their shoes. Power did mention they look forward to engaging with Alberta, British Columbia, and Indigenous communities further, which is important. Consultation is crucial. Indigenous rights and environmental considerations absolutely matter. But Smith's argument is that you can do thorough consultation without taking forever, especially when economic opportunity is knocking and might not stick around to knock twice. Carney did say earlier in the week that he thinks Canada's oil will remain competitive despite Maduro's removal because it's low risk and low cost. And sure, that's true to an extent. Canadian oil comes from a stable democracy with strong rule of law. There's no risk of sudden nationalization or political upheaval. But competitiveness isn't just about quality and stability, it's also about availability and speed to market. If Alberta's oil is stuck in regulatory limbo while Venezuelan oil is flowing freely with American backing, being low risk doesn't matter if you're not in the race. Here's what's really at stake. Alberta's government budget is deeply tied to oil revenues. When oil prices are high and production is strong, the province has money for healthcare, education, infrastructure, all the things that make a province function. When oil prices tank or production stalls, suddenly you're looking at cuts and deficits and political headaches. Smith isn't just fighting for the oil industry, she's fighting for fiscal stability. And whether you love or hate the oil sector, that's a legitimate concern for any premier. But let's zoom out for a second. This story is about more than just Alberta versus Ottawa or pipelines versus environmental concerns. It's about Canada's place in a rapidly shifting global energy landscape. Trump's aggressive move into Venezuelan oil production is a game changer. The United States is essentially saying, we're going to secure our energy interests through whatever means necessary, and we're going to do it fast. China is aggressively pursuing energy security across multiple continents. Europe is scrambling to diversify its energy sources after the Russia-Ukraine situation exposed vulnerabilities. And Canada? Canada is having a debate about whether 2 years is too long for project approvals. Smith's letter argues that within the current geopolitical context, 2-year timelines are woefully long. And you know what? In a world where energy security is increasingly tied to national security, she might be right. This isn't about rushing through approvals without proper assessment. It's about asking whether our systems are designed for the pace of change we're actually experiencing. It's about whether Canada can be both thorough and timely, because right now it seems like we're picking one at the expense of the other. The pipeline Smith is talking about isn't just about moving oil from point A to point B. It's about market access. It's about getting Alberta's heavy oil to Asian markets where demand is proven and growing. It's about not being entirely dependent on the United States as a customer, which gives Canada more leverage and more options. Diversification isn't just smart economics, it's strategic security. And an expansion of Trans Mountain plus a new pipeline would fundamentally change Alberta's access to global markets. So where does this leave us? Well, Smith has drawn her line in the sand. She wants 6-month approvals, or at least significantly faster than 2 years. She submitted her case based on geopolitical urgency and economic competitiveness. Poilievre has amplified the pressure by calling for 60-day approvals. Ottawa has responded with the political equivalent of "we hear you and we're working on it," which is exactly the kind of response that drives provinces like Alberta absolutely bonkers. Meanwhile, Trump is out here making $100 billion oil deals over lunch, and Canada is scheduling stakeholder engagement sessions for some time in the indeterminate future. The reality is that this debate touches on some of the biggest tensions in Canadian politics. Federal versus provincial jurisdiction. Economic development versus environmental protection. Indigenous consultation and rights. Regional economies versus national policy. Energy security versus climate commitments. These aren't simple issues with easy answers. But Smith's letter forces a conversation about speed and competitiveness that Canada needs to have. Because while we're debating process, other countries are making moves that could leave Canada economically sidelined in sectors where we should be leaders. If you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who cares about what's happening in Canadian politics, and that's exactly why Canadian Insights exists. We break down the stories that matter without the fluff and without taking 3 years to get to the point, unlike certain federal approval processes we could mention. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next update, because trust me, with the pace things are moving, there's going to be a lot more to talk about. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Should Ottawa speed up major project approvals, or is 2 years actually reasonable given the complexity involved? And if you want to support the channel, sharing this video helps more than you know. We post multiple times a day because Canadian politics doesn't take breaks, and neither do we. Thanks for watching Canadian Insights, and I'll see you in the next one.